Well, good afternoon and welcome to another episode of KelownaHomes.tv. You know, I always get excited when the Olympics are on. They just started formally last night with the opening ceremonies, and today we've got the results of some of the first events. And it's great to spectate. It's great to get behind your country, whatever it may be. For me, I'm always divided between England and Canada. But the one thing I love about the Olympics is nobody goes there with the intention of wanting to be average. It's a word that we love to hate. It's a word that we love so much to rationalize where we are. I'm doing better than average. And I don't think there's an Olympic athlete that comes up with that statement. I think they know that getting on the podium is the most important thing for them. Despite the stress that they put themselves through, their only victory, their only objective is to come home with a medal and leave everything they have on the table. So why do we talk about average so much? You know, media outlets talk about average all of the time, and it's because realtors, or the real estate industry as a profession, supplies them with the data that they need to talk about averages. They compare this year's sales to date against last year's average, or this year's sales compared to the last 10 years average. But how important is that parameter? How important is that statistic? And more importantly, how misleading is that statistic? And I want to show you a couple of things that I think can be very misleading to you as a member of the public who read those headlines about we're much better than average or we're much worse than average. I want to encourage you to go a little bit deeper with your realtor and have them work for you to find out exactly what's happening, not how we're doing compared to average, because we actually don't know what average is, and I want to share that with you. While we're talking about things that I think can be misleading, let me tell you about a real estate category that frustrates me. It's an area that I work a lot. It's recreational real estate. What's confusing to me as well as you is what is recreational real estate? I could probably take a guess that it might be a backcountry cabin on a lake somewhere between Kelowna and Merritt, for example. Makes sense to me. It's a recreational cabin. We'll take our kayaks and canoes and quads up there and we'll go and enjoy our time with the family. It could also be perhaps a timeshare purchase where we literally have access to a particular residential unit for 1, 2 or 3 weeks out of the year, or perhaps once every other year. Would that be recreational real estate? Well, it certainly would, and it gets categorized in there. It could also be a home on Lakeshore Drive in Kelowna, one of the most expensive homes in Kelowna. If it's owned by somebody who just lives out of town and comes here for the occasional weekend, could that be categorized as recreational real estate? Well, it certainly could. The trouble is you don't know whether it was or not. And so here's the confusion when it comes to that. Let's put together a hypothetical example of what might be average. Let me use a couple of numbers here for you. First, let's assume for a minute that we sell a lakeshore home for $3 million. Let's put that into our basket of products that we've sold to create an average. Let's assume that we sell 2 timeshare weeks. They're each worth about $4,000, so we'd have sold $8,000 worth of timeshare. And let's also assume perhaps that we sell one of those remote backcountry cabins on a lake. It's a lease with the federal government and it comes in valued at $75,000. Let's put all of those together in a basket and figure out what the average sale was. Well, you can crunch the numbers the same way I can, and you'll find out that the average was $770,750. So we could say to you that the average recreational real estate sale this month was $770,750. And there were 4 properties sold. 2 of them were worth $4,000. How important is that statistic? I don't believe it is any importance whatsoever, and yet continually we come back to this average to try and see how we price our home, see how we're doing in the marketplace, and I think it's one of the most misleading statistics you could possibly use. To get around some of the confusion, we also use another mathematical formula called median. What median does, if you look at a plot, a chart, a graph of the number of houses that have sold in a particular month, and you tabulate the number of houses on the one axis compared to the price of the house on another axis, you'll get what we call a bell curve, a curve that does something like this. And the average will tell us, we add up all of the values, we divide it by the number of total samples that we have, and we have an average. The problem is that average can fall outside of that the center of the bell curve a little bit. And so what median does is it really tries to approximate the center of the bell curve. And the reason that's important is because when we have this bell curve, we have outlying anomalies out here. We have properties that for $4,000 sold, or properties for $3 million that sold, and they can skew the statistic. And so we give you another statistic, it's called median. And so the media is always confused whether we're using median or mean, and how do we interpret it. And the truth is, it takes a lot more data than that to interpret anything that's happening in our marketplace. What I want to encourage you to do is to ask your realtor to show you the samples, show you the data that they use to come up with a number that would give you an indication of how well the market is doing or what value your house may be. I think personally they owe you that, to show you the due diligence that they've done to come up with the numbers for you. But as I say, you can't just take that number. You need to know the methodology. You need to know how it was put together. If you do that, you'll have a better understanding not only of perhaps your own potential house value, but also the state of the market as it is today compared to some point in the past.